There are so many different kinds of love that we could talk about. And what we're talking about here today applies to all of them because real love isn't something that you just automatically get or give. It's something that you make. And the first step to making more of it is loving yourself enough to let yourself be seen. But that can be a really vulnerable place for most of us to be. So we either consciously or unconsciously create some barriers to keep most of the people in our lives at arm's length to protect ourselves. Because somewhere along the way, we probably learned that love can hurt. But the walls you build around your heart to keep the world from hurting you are the same walls that keep the real you from being seen. And there is a way to tear down those walls and open up to the idea that you can make more love in every part of your life. And you can do it without losing the ability to protect yourself, and not just with romantic partners or friends or family, but with everybody in your life. And that includes opening yourself up to the people that really might feel hard to love. But that can make the idea of being out there in the open and showing people the real you pretty intimidating and sometimes even really scary, because most people see vulnerability and boundaries as opposing forces, with a false belief that somehow to open yourself up to other people, you have to sacrifice yourself or hide parts of yourself. But the real you is the part of you that knows real love, and it knows that real intimacy is only possible because of the healthy boundaries that you create and hold. And that is especially difficult when we're talking about people that you really do care about. You might say you love someone deeply, but if you're trying to control them or allowing yourself to be controlled by them in an effort to keep the peace, those are both barriers to the kind of intimacy that we're talking about here. You can recognize and have compassion for another person's human struggle without letting their unhealthy behavior have an impact on your own behavior or compromising the real you. You can love somebody and still protect yourself without pretending to be something that you're not. And you can protect your personal code and drop the burden of hiding certain parts of yourself. And you do that by studying your code and committing to keep it. And we're not just talking about how you interact with the people that feel easy to love. We've got to talk about the people in your life that feel hard to love. How do you love them anyway without breaking your code? And why would you even want to? I know that's especially challenging when you're interacting with people that have hurt you or people that you just generally disagree with. And of course, sometimes there are people that are hard to like at all, but that's what we're working on here, because all of those walls that we build up to keep ourselves safe from difficult people are the same walls that keep us trapped in a cycle of inauthentic self-expression. Opening your heart, even to the people that aren't so easy to love, is how you get out of that trap. Because the walls you build to protect yourself don't just keep them out, they keep everybody out, at least a little bit. And those are the same walls that are keeping the real you in. When you hold on to anger, you're the one who gets trapped in that cage. And when you hold on to hate, at some point, you're really just hurting yourself. And that's something the real you doesn't do. That truest version of you knows how to break down those walls without breaking your code or setting yourself up to get hurt. And that starts with going back to all the work we've already done on self-love and self-understanding. We've been talking about loving different parts of you that have been hurt or feel hard to love, and getting to know the parts of you that have been hiding and need healing. And you can turn all of that into a tool for loving and understanding the people in the world around you. And that doesn't mean that you're not allowed to have boundaries. Boundaries and walls aren't the same thing. I'm not asking you to let somebody cross your boundaries, but the judgments that we make on ourselves and other people are almost always pretty closely related. Hating on any part of you or anybody else violates your own peace and the boundaries that you've set for yourself. You're out of balance with the world when you're stuck in anger or blame or spite or resentment, because the real love and freedom that you're looking for is only found in understanding and forgiveness and compassion. Real love doesn't cost you your identity, it reveals it. And at some point, you realize that love isn't just a feeling, it's what you are. We're creating a bridge from the energy center of self-love to the center of authentic self-expression. This is the transition from the heart to the throat, taking everything that you've learned about loving yourself and your own challenges in life and applying that to everyone else. Recognizing that our shared human struggle is the key to the liberation of the ego. And since we're making a big transition here, you want to start applying so many parts of the practice that we created for humility. The intentions that we set for love are focused on letting love lead in every area of your life. These are the same intentions that you set for really loving yourself in a healthy way, remembering yourself, reminding yourself that you can love yourself and protect yourself by being honest, by being open and fair and kind. This is how you stay in that real you space, even when it feels like the outside world is asking you to be something that you're not. You're actively seeking a deeper realization of the real you. And that realization keeps unfolding as you find empathy for the challenges that affect other people's behavior. The underlying difficulties and virtues of other people aren't really yours to judge. Love is just asking you to remember that everyone does have them. Finding understanding and respect for their struggle, remembering that the challenges they face probably aren't so different than challenges that you've been facing. Even if they look different on the outside, we're talking about what's happening on the inside. You can understand the struggles of the shared experience without feeling all warm and fuzzy about someone else's opinions or choices or behavior, because love isn't just a feeling. It's a choice to intentionally move your internal conversation from judgment to understanding. If humility is the principle of understanding yourself and seeing yourself clearly, love is what you do with what you see. Because you do have a choice to make. You can go back into those old patterns and build more walls. You can keep fighting to feel right or hiding to feel safe, or you can actively choose to make more love here. The meditation includes a hand gesture for opening your heart, realizing the love that's already there inside you and looking for it in everyone around you and everywhere you go. Meditating on making love real in your life with understanding and forgiveness and compassion and empathy and respect and growing all those same feelings that help you love yourself, because you can't consistently give what you don't have. If you've been avoiding parts of yourself that still need to be studied, you're probably going to be avoiding real connection with other people. And if you don't respect your own boundaries, you probably won't be able to hold them with anyone else. So when something comes up and you feel triggered and those old walls and reactions come to the surface, remind yourself of who you really are and what real love means. And because most of us have been taught that love is just a feeling, that's not always so easy to do. It's not something that you just fall into or wait for, or something that comes and goes depending on the person or the situation. That's not how it works in real life. It's not just a feeling. It's a way of thinking and a decision that you make about what you say and do, and a standard that you set for how you show up, especially when it's not easy. The reflection for love is a reminder to keep asking yourself, what would love do in every situation? And when that feels hard to do, you might have to spend some time exploring that question, seeking understanding and releasing judgments. And we're back to identifying controversy and addressing conflict, admitting your own faults and your own part in any of those conflicts, and affirming not just your own virtues, but all the good things that you see in the other person too. If you're struggling to find compassion for one of those difficult people in your life, ask, what would the part of me that knows what it's like to be angry or hurting, or the part of me that has made mistakes, need from me in this situation? How could I extend even just a little bit of that kind of compassion to this angry or unhealthy or difficult or hurting person? If I knew that I didn't have anything to lose and I was being the very best version of me, what would that version of me do? That's the real paradox here. You are the one who loses when you shut yourself down. If the same walls you build to protect yourself are keeping you trapped, it's pretty safe to assume that any judgments you're still holding against other people relate to something that still needs to be processed. Maybe you're still judging yourself. And if you're having a hard time forgiving other people, there might be something that you still need to forgive yourself for. And that is the shift that leads to integration on this really big open scale. Finding compassion for what's happening inside another person and asking not what fear would do, not what would keep the peace or what would make the other person happy, but what would the real love that comes from the very best part of you actually do? Because sometimes love needs to be soft. It needs to listen and comfort and say yes. But sometimes it sets a boundary, and sometimes it has to say no, and sometimes it even needs to walk away, because love isn't about being liked. It's about being real and strong without being harsh, and being compassionate without being weak, especially when you're triggered, because it's easy to be loving when everything feels good and going your way, but that's not a test. That doesn't really prove anything. The test is, who are you when your ego is active? What do you do and say when you feel disrespected or misunderstood? That's when we can very suddenly forget all about love and just start reacting. The archetype for love is the lover, with a strong visual image that points to the source of your true power. And it might seem overexposed, but this kind of vulnerability is actually strength. There isn't any weakness here. It comes unconditionally with respect and compassion, looking for the best in everyone. And that starts with you, expressing itself when you're thoughtful and when you're generous, when you're vulnerable and when you're strong, because all of those things come from that most powerful part of you. Go back to checking your motives and checking your own thinking and adjusting your own behavior, because all those walls can go up the second we feel threatened. And you're getting honest with yourself when you feel defensive or withdrawing or trying to control something that's not yours to control, because that really is just the ego. It's going back to the default reaction because that's what feels safe, especially when you're interacting with the people that you really do care about. Those are usually the people that can easily trigger intense emotions. And very often that's because you really do care about how they see you and what they think. But hiding parts of yourself to please them just keeps building the barrier that keeps most of us from experiencing real intimacy, even in our closest relationships. Real love says you can respect yourself and the other person at the same time without having to compromise yourself. It doesn't mean saying yes when you mean no, and it doesn't mean tolerating unhealthy behavior, and it definitely doesn't mean shrinking who you are to keep that connection. You don't have to be everybody's best friend to be the lover and make more love in your life. Other people don't have to change for you to love them. The relationships in your life change because you're making a change for the better. You speak with respect even when you're upset, choosing to see the part of the other person that might be struggling. And if that still feels hard to do, you practice in all the small everyday things that don't feel so hard to do, so that you can remember what to do when it's not so easy. And at some point, love stops being something that you're trying to get, and it turns into something that you can give without losing yourself. So the next time you're in a situation where you feel those walls closing in, instead of shutting down or closing yourself off, practice opening yourself up. And not by forcing the feeling, but by making a conscious decision to choose healing. Reminding yourself that all of us are in this together and we really aren't so different. All the work that you've been doing to heal yourself pays off here. Understanding that other people have their own healing to do too. That's the secret to making more love in all of your relationships and in every part of your life.